Having worked with thousands of churches over the years, I have learned that most churches are uploading their sermons to YouTube in the exact wrong way. And here's why this matters. If we upload our sermons wrong to YouTube, it can actually cost us hundreds, if not thousands of views each and every week. So here at Reach Right, we've developed this 7-step framework to help churches figure out the right way to upload your sermons to YouTube each and every time. I'm gonna break it down for you in this video. Here we are on a normal YouTube channel. This is my personal YouTube channel. I don't use this very much, as you can see on here. But before we get into anything, before we actually even upload a video, the first step in the framework is always to do your keyword research, to find the right keyword. And this is because the biggest mistake that most churches make is that they're actually just using generic terms, or maybe even their sermon titles as their titles and their keywords for the actual video that they load onto YouTube. We'll assume that we just did a sermon on tithing. And let's say it was titled in church, the name of it was Give God Your First Fruits. Okay, so good, perfectly good title. I think that really works for an in-church audience. The problem is that people aren't typically searching for give God your first fruits or that idea of first fruits. It's not really that widely used. So the first step in uploading your sermons to YouTube is always to get the keywords right. You need to make sure that you have those dialed in. The tool we recommend to do this is the Ahrefs or Ahrefs, using their YouTube keyword tool. And it really is a slick tool. And I'm going to show you exactly how it works. Again, we want to really hone in on our message and what it was actually about. In this case, like we said, it was about tithing. So we're just going to go ahead and put that in as the keyword. We'll put in tithing, and we're going to hit find keywords. It asks if we're a robot or not. We'll make sure that they know that we are not. And then what it does is it gives you some really cool information. So we preached a message on tithing. It tells you the number of monthly searches that each of these tithing related terms has each and every month here. So the first one here is tithing. Now, you might be tempted to say, well, isn't that the perfect keyword for a message about tithing? It's just tithing. Well, it's a great keyword. The problem is that's a very competitive keyword. I would recommend never going for one-word keywords for your YouTube videos. And that's just because these are going to be dominated by people that have much larger channels in most cases than you do. So assuming you're a average sized church with a not huge YouTube following, ranking for a term like tithing will be pretty hard to do. The truth about tithing, well, if I think about it, I think most messages on tithing, you could probably title it something like that. And here's some direct information that says that 100 people every month are searching for that exact term, the truth about tithing. Now, that doesn't include people that search for things like truth about tithing or truth about biblical tithing or truth about the tithe. Actually, the number of people searching for all of those terms combined is much higher. But in this case here, the truth about tithing, we're getting 100 searches. So we think that'd be a really good keyword to choose as kind of our primary one. So we're going to keep that in mind. Our keyword is going to be the truth about tithing. We'll flip on over back to our channel here. And next we're going to go ahead and upload our video. So to do that, you've probably done this on your YouTube channel before. You're going to hit create, upload video. It gives you the option to select files or just drag and drop. And this brings us to our next step, which is step number 2, which is giving your sermon a title. Now, when you give your sermon a title, you want to avoid things like the name of your pastor, the name of your church, the service time when church happened, the service date. These are things that we typically see churches do, or even just the name that you gave it in church. You want to give it a unique title that has your keyword right at the beginning of it. So in this case here, we're going to go ahead and title it The Truth About Tithing, and then we're going to use brackets after that. This is actually something we've picked up from our research, is that titles with brackets in them do tend to get better results than titles that do not have brackets in them. So I wouldn't recommend using that every single time, but that is something that your church can look at and use there, is using brackets on that. Here in this case, we call it The Truth About Tithing, again, our keyword, and then 3 things you need to know. Presumably these would be the points that your pastor made, or if you are the pastor that you made in your Sunday message there. Adding a little bit more kind of incentive to click on it will help you to get more click-throughs on this here. So you want to use this keyword in your title right at the very beginning. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is you need to write a description. YouTube is still kind of in its infancy at really understanding the content of each and every video that you upload there, especially a 40-minute sermon, for instance. It's not able to really decipher what is this all about here. It's not able to read that. It usually does some things where they'll pull the actual text and they do some auto captioning and things where they'll try to figure out what you meant to say in this here and try to put it into their algorithm. But really they rely pretty heavily still on the descriptions that we put in here. So you want to write a unique description right in this box here. So the tool we recommend for doing this is using the Hemingway editor. I love this tool. It is just a tool that we use to write things in a much simpler, easier way, because here's what we found is that the easier something is to read, the better it performs in search. So you'll see here, this Hemingway editor, it gives us a grade level of how readable your description is here. So some of the keys to writing a good description is you want to, again, use that keyword in the first sentence of your description. So in this one, we say, in this message, Pastor Joe walks us through the truth about tithing, our keyword here. And then what you're going to try and do is you're going to try to get other synonyms for our keyword into the text. So then we say things like, many people misunderstand what the Bible has to say about the tithe. So the Bible has to say about the tithe. That's probably something that people are searching for. One little tool you can use here is back on this Ahrefs. You'll see there's a questions tab where you can see some of the questions that people are typing in. And these are going to have lower volume than just the terms. But here it says, what does the Bible say about tithing? So we did kind of a variation of that in this case here. So we chose, many people misunderstand what the Bible has to say about the tithe, but understanding this important method of giving, so method of giving, that's another kind of synonym for tithing in a way, is one of the keys to growing your faith and building the church. If you want to grow in your faith, understanding the concept of tithing, so concept of tithing, another one of those synonyms, is vital. And then we move into the description, what we call like timestamps, basically. So here it says, in this video, you will learn, and we tell people the things they will learn. And here's the format for this, is if you put a minute and then a second mark for the video, it will actually make a chapter in the video for that. So in most cases, we think this is a good spot where you can put in your different points that you have. So you may want to change the names of your points if you have a certain points that maybe aren't really search friendly or don't use the term tithe. You might want to change them up a little bit. So here in this case, we called it an overview of tithing, what the Old Testament teaches on tithing. What the New Testament tells us about tithing is tithing for today. How much should you tithe? Should you tithe? Those kinds of questions. So you want to get all these in, and it's a great spot for you to get in keywords and then kind of timestamp it in your video so that the nice thing is people can find the answers to their questions directly if they're coming into this video and just wanting to find one specific answer to a question. You know, we really have to think about our sermons on YouTube as different from what people hear on Sunday morning. You know, I know it would be our preference that people would start at minute 1 and listen all the way through the altar call at the end of the message. But in reality, people will typically scan, they'll listen to part, and you'll be able to see this. They'll actually see graphs on the back end of YouTube that shows you where people listened, where they typically drop off in your sermon. You can use all this stuff to learn. I always end also with some hashtags. These are kind of, I've read some new things that says they don't really matter that much, but I think including a few can't really hurt. So we usually include a couple. You'll have your keyword or things related to your keyword. So in this case, we have tithing, biblical tithing, and tithes and offerings. You're gonna wanna take this entire description that we just put together, and we're gonna pop it right into the description here on YouTube. So now we have a nice search optimized kind of a description to take a look at here. Next step 4 in the framework is you want to create a killer thumbnail. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details of exactly how we do that. There's lots to this, but I do want to take a second to talk about how important it is to nail this thumbnail here. Think about it. When someone's scrolling through YouTube, they look at the title, but even before that, they see the thumbnail, the picture that you've associated with this. So one of the biggest mistakes you can do is just using your series graphic, or worse, just having a generic thumbnail that your church uses for each and every message. That's a great way to not get clicks on these because it doesn't ever stand out when you do that. So what we've learned over the years is that you want to have a provocative few words, and then you want to include a big picture of whoever spoke, their face, like a kind of a close-up, kind of about as close as I am to this camera here right now is what we're looking for. So you want to do that. Now, there's all kinds of ways you can do that. If you're really design experienced, you can do it in Photoshop. I find that the easiest way to do it for most churches, and even what we do here at ReachRight, even our professional designers that eat, breathe, sleep the whole Adobe suite in Photoshop, they do it all in Canva because it's that much easier. So you can go into Canva. There's all kinds of tools you can use here, but if you just put in YouTube thumbnail, it brings up this page that we're already on, and it gives us a bunch of templates that you can actually hop it into here to make. And so you'll see a lot of them are using that format I just told you about. So 3 or 4 words, a big picture of a close-up of their face. Now, this is a church sermon, so I'm not expecting you to make all kinds of silly faces, but you'll probably want to pull a screen capture from the recording of that sermon that week. And then actually Canva has some great tools into the back end here where you can actually strip out all the background and put just the person, put just the speaker right on there. But you'll see dozens of different templates that are following the same pattern here with 3 or 4 words, a big picture of the person who did the speaking. So use any one of these. It shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes to make a really great thumbnail. But here's what I want to emphasize again. Your success rises and falls on the thumbnail, I would say, more than anything else, because as good as you may have preached, as good as the message might be, as good as the production quality might be, people will not click on it if they're not engaged and enticed by the thumbnail that they see here. Step 5, add it to a playlist. Here in this case, I don't have any added here yet. Maybe your church doesn't have any yet. You want to use your playlists as a way to categorize your different sermons that you've done there. So I would recommend that you do one of 2 things, that you categorize them based on book of the Bible. If you're an expository kind of church, I think that's probably the best way to go, or whatever the searchable topic is that people might be searching for on these kinds of issues here. So I do not think you should do it based on your sermon series title. It's not the end of the world to do that. You can add it to a playlist that way, as long as you do it to the other ones. And here's something to remember is that you can actually add sermons to multiple playlists. It doesn't only have to be in one. So in this particular one, let's say I preached out of Genesis. I used some of the passages in Genesis about first fruits. Maybe we talked about Cain and Abel, and Cain and Abel bringing his first fruits kind of offering. So maybe I'll put a playlist, I'll put it in our Genesis playlist because we've been preaching through that, but I'll also put it into a broader topic like generosity, or maybe you talk a lot about tithing. You can have all of your messages on tithing in the same section here. So, but I would add a term like that. So we'll go ahead and add a new playlist. We're going to call it the Genesis playlist. So you go ahead and create it. And there we are. It's now in the Genesis playlist. So that's all there for us. Step 6, add tags. Couple things to mention as we get to that is you always want to say, no, it's not made for kids. Now, you might say, well, I don't really swear in my sermons. There's nothing that's objectionable, but there's actually some really rigorous standards to what YouTube allows YouTube for kids, what kind of content they put on there. And in reality, this is not content that you're making specifically for kids. That's the question that they're actually asking there. So in almost all cases, you want to say, no, it's not made for kids. That'll get you more views on things here. So you're going to hit the show more button. There's a bunch of other questions here, like is it a paid promotion? In most cases, it's not going to be. You do not need to allow automatic chapters in key moments because you remember in the description, we put in these chapters here. So you can uncheck that button. You can add automatic places. This will usually be able to tell what city and state the message was preached in. So you can go ahead and add that in here. But here's one of the important parts here is this tags area. So this is where you let YouTube know all of the kind of categories and things that you think this video is related to. You used to have a really, really heavy bearing on how you appeared in search. It is now less so as their algorithms get smarter, but we still find that this is something that does make a difference and it helps you see kind of where you rank on things here. So you can add up to 500 characters of tags in this here, all separated by hitting the enter button, and it'll kind of separate out your tags that way. I recommend using a tool to do this. So in this particular case, I recommend this one here. It's called Rapid Tags. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna take your title, or maybe just your keyword part of your title, and we're gonna go ahead and copy that. And then we're gonna go over to Rapid Tags. It's rapidtags.io, and there's a generator there. And all you do is copy and paste that into your keyword into the Rapid Tags tag generator and hit search. And then here it spits out right around or close to 500 characters of different tagging. So it gave us things like the truth about tithing, truth about tithing, what the Bible says about tithing, is tithing for today, biblical tithing, tithing deception. I'm not sure, that keeps coming up. I don't know what that is there, but it might be something that people are searching for, and it's something that's okay to put in your tags here. So in most cases, you'll want to take a good look at it and say, well, I don't know who Jamal Hartwell is. I didn't preach about him in my message, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that one. But everything else on here looks pretty good. I don't know what the truth about tithing gospel musicians is, so maybe we'll drop that one too. So here we have a good handful of different tags. We'll go ahead and copy that, and then we'll head back over to our channel content and down into the tag section, and all you do is Control V, and you copy all of these tags right in, and now you have some generally good tags that go along with what your message is here. So you're gonna wanna do that. Step 7, add the finishing details. In general, with any social media or online platform, the more of the questions they ask you that you answer, the more they're gonna help you rank on searches, because you've gone through the steps they ask you to go through. They'll usually give you better results on things there. So here in this case, it'll ask us what language. So we'll do English United States. And then there's caption certification. We didn't do any captions here. I do recommend captions for churches. You can actually juice your results even further. It's just a lot of work for some churches to kind of go through that step. There are some services out there that can do good quality captions for $1 to $2 a minute if you want to pay for it. If your church is the type that does a manuscript, we do recommend adding in captions at that point there. So that would be a good thing to do. So you're gonna add in your recording date and location. So this is usually the Sunday that you preached it. The location, you're gonna say where it was actually done. So let's say Honolulu in my case. You're almost always gonna use the standard YouTube license. It usually is okay to allow people to embed it. And you can publish to subscriptions feed, and you can notify your subscribers if they've asked for that there. All of this is usually pretty typical. As far as categories, we recommend that you use the nonprofits and activism category. It might not feel like that really captures who we are as churches, but I think that's usually the best one where we fit in. Alternatively, we've seen good results with the education one, because we are trying to teach something. That gives us some other questions you can answer here. But again, just try to fill all those out as much as possible. And then it asks you some questions about comments and what we want to say there. You're going to want to allow comments, but I would recommend in most cases that you hold potentially inappropriate comments for review. So you can have that done on there at a later time, and you can kind of get back and say, no, that's not appropriate, so we're going to leave that out. So that's that. That's kind of our framework on things. There's one more section here. This is where you can add your subtitles, some of those kinds of things. We do recommend also adding end screens and cards. What these are, an end screen is something where you can recommend another one of your videos to someone that made it to the end of your video. So this kind of, it's not so much something that helps with search, but it is something that helps with building your channel, because people will, maybe they heard what you said about tithing, you can recommend another video, maybe if you have one about offerings, or another video in the book of Genesis that you want to recommend to people. So you can add that there. And then also these cards here, if you mentioned in your message something to the effect of, hey, if you want to hear more about this, we preached this last week, you can actually link back to last week's video here in the card right when you say it in the message. So you can link that and use the card. It does play a little bit of a role in kind of building your channel channel. I don't know that it does much for actual search, but we recommend that you do that. So you can add those in there, and then you get to next. It'll ask you to do some checks to make sure you have no copyright issues. It says already nothing here is copyright infringed. If you have worship music in your actual sermon portion, that can sometimes flag some of these copyright issues. So be cautious of that. But in most cases, you shouldn't have any issue here because obviously this is original content. And then finally, you have this opportunity to schedule and publish your video. Take a look and kind of in your area, it can be different from place to place on when you should actually upload. There's some tools out there you can find that'll help you find the right time to upload. But if you just want to go ahead and publish it right away, I don't think this makes a huge difference in your search engine performance on things here. So you do that, you go ahead and hit save, and you're good to go. So that's again our 7-step framework on how exactly we recommend that every church upload their sermons to YouTube. So that's our 7 steps on how exactly we recommend that your church upload every single sermon video to YouTube. We've seen this be really successful for churches. We've actually seen some data that shows that churches that practice this have been able to triple the number of views that they're seeing on there. So I hope this has been really helpful to you. And if it has, it would mean a lot to me if you would consider subscribing with that button down there below, like this video, and let somebody else know about it. Thanks for being a part of the Reach Right family, and we'll catch you next time.